and feeling, two different dimensions. First, we understand these as a different dimensions. If knowledge is important for you, as is the case with most of the people, then head remains the center. And if you have attained to childlike innocence, then heart center becomes important. Heart feels, mind thinks. Heart is the seed where innocence blossoms. The child lives in the heart, and we live in the head. The child feels, but we as adult think. Even when we say that we feel, we think that we feel. Thinking becomes primary for us and feeling becomes secondary. Thinking is a tool of science and feeling a tool for religion, inward journey, meditation, transformation, and transcendence beyond the duality. My emphasis and that of all the awakened ones is to bring you from the dimension of realm of thinking to feeling. For feeling, you have to have childlike innocence. Childlike innocence, spontaneity, freedom, fearless existence, spontaneity, being natural. Child is always natural. It does not matter who is in front of the child. But we as an adult are guided by so many conditionings. We must start to be a feeling organism again. And this is where Sufis say two realms they use, jazb and suluk. Jazb belongs to the dimension of heart, but heart is guided by lower emotions first. So those has to be purified. You have to move from lower dimension of the heart or lower emotions to higher feeling. Sex comes in the lower dimension of emotions or feelings. When sex is purified, transformed, you move to the dimension of heart, a feeling being. Think about a flower. Let us think about a flower, maybe a rose flower. When you think, you are separate from the flower. There is a gap, a distance, a space between you and the flower. And this is what happens between lover and beloved. We think, we feel, but there is a separation. For thinking, space is needed. We think about love making, but the love making does not become feeling. So for thinking, a space is needed. For thoughts to move, a distance is needed. Anything, when we see a flower, we become a thinking being. When we think about sex, we are not feeling. Instead, we are thinking, and sex remains cerebral. For feel the flower, and the moment you feel the flower, the distance disappears. When you are moving in the dimension of sex, be a feeling, no thinking. And the moment you are feeling yourself and the presence deep within, the person is outside, but you are feeling the presence deep within. You have removed all the gaps. Feeling brings the closeness in our love relationships. We are physically close, but because of thinking, there remains a distance, a gap for thoughts to float. When during the act of love making or sex, there is no thoughts arising, you are completely thoughtless, or thoughts are not bothering you. They are not affecting you. Then you have moved to the dimension of feeling. And the gap between you and your beloved disappears. The gap between you and the flower has disappeared. Have you, watching a rose, have you felt the presence of rose within? When you feel the presence of rose within, then the flower has touched you. When you feel the presence of your beloved or lover deep within you, that he is not outside, he is your innerness, or she is your innerness, then feeling deepens. And in that feeling, what you attain is something indescribable and unimaginable by the mind. And the moment this dimension of feeling comes, there comes innocence, spontaneity, total freedom. There is no barrier. And you have come so close that there is an overlapping. The person is part of you. And then it is not part of you, it is you. A moment comes when even closeness appears to be a sort of distance. And then what happens? You start melting in the flower. Flower becomes you. And the same happens between lover and beloved. First, you are coming close to one another. There is oneness. And then this closeness also becomes an obstruction. And then the process of melting begins. Both begin to melt into one another. Then you cannot feel the boundaries of where you are and where the flower is. All the boundaries are broken between you and the flower that you are watching, or between you and beloved, all boundaries have disappeared. where you end and where flower begins. There is no boundaries. Then boundaries melt into each other. The flower enters you in a way. You enter the flower in a way. Feeling is losing the boundaries. When between you and your beloved, you lose all the boundaries. This may seem to be unimaginable for you, but some of you have experienced this melting into one another. Not separate, but all boundaries have disappeared. There is total innocence, freedom, no restriction, nothing. Boundaries have disappeared. Then boundaries melt into each other. Flower enters you, you enter the flower, the lover enters the beloved, beloved enters the lover. That is why thinking always insists on definitions, because without definitions you cannot create boundaries. Thinking says, let us define first. Feeling says, do not define. If you define, feeling disappears. The child feels, we think. The child comes very close to the existence. He melts and allows the existence to melt into him. We are isolated, imprisoned into our own conditionings. We are like an island. A moment comes between lover and beloved through the act of love making, that all boundaries disappear. There is total innocence. If you have experienced the childlike innocence, you know what innocence I am talking about. I can give you a taste. And once you are close to your beloved, where all the boundaries have disappeared, you have started melting into one another, then that state that is felt as innocence. Therefore, it is important to return back to the heart center. Start feeling things. You are holding the hand of the beloved. You are in embrace. You think two bodies, they are separate from one another. You start feeling the distance disappears. Both are melting into one another. Two bodies, two beings are melting into one another. You start feeling the presence, the body as presence. It will be a great experience if you start feeling things. It is easiest to start feeling the presence of your beloved. For that, even the physical presence sometimes is not necessary. If the love is so deep, then you can feel the presence wherever you are. Start feeling things. Whatsoever you do, give a certain amount of your time and energy to feeling. You are sitting here, you are listening to me, but that will be a part of thinking. You can also feel me here. And that will not be part of thinking. If you feel my presence surrounding you, a subtle presence, then definitions are lost. Then really, if you come to a moment of feeling, you do not know who is speaking and who is listening. The speaker and listener becomes one. That is where it is said, the object and the subject disappear into one another, and there just remains the flowing, the rivering. When there remains simply the rivering between lover and beloved, all boundaries have disappeared. At times, you experience this. But even while you are experiencing it, you are not aware of it. But sometimes you appear that all boundaries have disappeared. There is no definition. Then really, if you come to a moment of feeling, you do not know who is speaking and who is listening, who is watching you and who is doing the things. The speaker becomes listener and listener becomes a speaker. You are doing the things, somebody is watching. You are doing this simultaneously, two things, you are watching and doing the same thing. I give you the example. I am speaking. Speaking is happening. You are listening. Two things are there. Speaking and listening. You are listening. I am speaking. But I am listening also what I am saying. The consciousness has become two arrowed, 2 points together. Normally an arrow has one point and the other is a flat side. This is how the consciousness is. The moment you are talking, your attention is on the other. And that creates the difference. When you are talking to someone, you are saying something, and if you are a feeling being, you will know how it will affect the person. You can say the word, use the word stupid. If the word is coming out of thinking, and it is being received in the thinking atmosphere, it will disturb the person. When out of love you tell your children or tell someone, stupid, you're looking stupid, it is felt within, and that's have a totally different effect. I have experienced such moments. You have at times experienced such moments. When I use a word to address you, if someone else had said it, use that word for you, you would feel offended. When I say that word to you, you do not feel offended. Instead, there is boundaryless presence. You feel that these words are as if you have spoken. It is not out of thinking. It is out of deep reverence, deep respect for you. Feel that way. If you can feel my presence, if you can feel my words when they are coming, then the definitions are lost. Then really you come to a moment of feeling. You do not know who is speaking, who is feeling, who is speaking and who is listening. This can happen right this very moment. As I said, when you are listening and feeling same time, I am speaking a word to you, but I am feeling it also. I am listening to it. And how will it affect an individual? Then you will not use those words, and then you use it in a totally different way. But these are just poles, isolated. They are not real. The real thing is just in between these two, the life that flows. There is a subject, there is an object, and there is something that happens between object and subject. There is you, the seer, and there is something to be seen, the furniture. But what is very important? The seer is important, and the seen is important. But what is happening between these two? Energy flows out of the seer, it captures an image, and it brings back. So that process of seeing is very important. That process is known as rivering. It is, life is rivering between you and me. Something is rivering. You are not, you are there, I am there. Neither you are important nor I am important. What is important? What is rivering between two of us? The energy that is flowing between two of us, unrestricted. Words are energy. It is something that is flowing. It is difficult to put into the words. You may feel it. But when the energy begins to river between the two, the life energy, the life force begin to river between the two beings, that is the moment of feeling. And that goes so deep. Once you have experienced this, you will not remain the same what you was before. Journey when the seer and the seen have disappeared into one another. When you and me have disappeared, what is flowing between you and me at this moment? Through these words, an energy is flowing. When I am watching and you are doing something, energy is flowing. It is rivering. There is no other word. The energy is a noun. River is a noun. But from river it is rivering. When life force begins to energying between you, the two, you have moved to the dimension of feeling. And once you have experienced that moment of when the energy, when the life force is rivering, not from me to you, but between, it goes there and comes back to me. Like the waves are striking, arising in the center, reaching to the shore, and coming back melting, coming back dissolved. It has been completely absorbed by you. The process of rivering has begun. And you are totally attained to the state of innocence. There is no difference between you and I. You have come, this is the state when the drop merges into the ocean. The drop merges into the ocean. And when you experience this moment, whenever you feel something other than you, whenever you feel something other than ego becomes important, object and subject lose their definitions. The male and female lose their separate identities because they are melting into one another. A flow, a wave existed. You exist as a wave, not as a lover, not as a beloved. The very purpose of life, the very purpose of transformation is to reach that moment when you are waving into the other is waving into you. In the moments of deep love, in the moments of sex, this happens. So that is why when the enlightenment is existential orgasm, and then you even forget about orgasm, the energy attains the peak and the ebb both. It reaches to the peak, and there it does not end. It must reach to the ebb, the valley, and the two moments come together simultaneously. Object and subject lose their definitions. A flow, a wave exists. On one pole, the speaker is there. Another pole, the listener is there. But the life is the wave that is waving. Between lover and beloved, they are two separate poles. When the energy begins to wave between the two, it begins to river. Waving begins. Then a new journey begins. Head gives you a clarity. And because of this clarity, much confusion has come into being. Because the head defines things clearly, marks the boundaries. Defining clearly means marking the boundaries, creating the maps, creating the boundaries, creating the maps. With reason, everything becomes clear cut. No weakness is there. No mystery is allowed. All that is vague is rejected. Only the clarity remains. Reason gives you a clarity because with clarity, and because of this clarity, a basic misunderstanding arises. Clarity is not reality. Reality is always unclear. That's why existence is a mystery. Life is a mystery to be lived, not to solve. Lover is a mystery. Flow into it. Beloved is a mystery. Flow into that. And that melting, that flowing becomes the rivering, the mysterious. All concepts are rational. Reality is irrational. It cannot be put into use. So existence is mystery that cannot be solved, it can only be lived. Words are clear, logic is clear, life is not clear. And when heart gives you a kind of a vagueness that is melting, heart gives you a melting vagueness. It reaches reality more intimately, but it is not clear. You cannot define, you cannot explain clearly. That's why at times when you ask the lover or beloved, how did you feel? Fails to explain because it reaches reality more intimately, but it is not clear. You feel very intimate closeness, intimate relation, but it is not clear. And because we have chosen clarity as the goal, we have been missing the reality. The moment you forget about the reality, you're simply revering. You must have unclear eyes to enter reality again. You must be weak. You must be ready to enter something which cannot be conceptualized. Love cannot be conceptualized. A beloved cannot be conceptualized because there is no. Lover is a lover when boundaries melt into dissolve. A beloved is a beloved when boundaries dissolve and they melt into one another. Into something which is not logical, into something which is staggering and real, staggering and alive. That is what melting is, when all boundaries disappear, and that's where the reality, the mysteries of life begins to unfold themselves, their energy, their life force. Enough for now.